Hello and happy full moon in Virgo. I'm DanielleStimpson, owner of Learn Reiki Philadelphia, and I'm here today to offer you, if you wish, a beautiful healing, intention setting, and action steps for the next 2 weeks from this full moon through the waning phase. Uh, we'll have a couple of things for you to take away that you can experience here. And there's a few things in the description, namely some action steps and journaling cues that you can use if you'd like to download those. Without any further ado, let's just jump right into it. Okay, so today's full moon is pretty potent. You may already be feeling the energy. I know I've been really tired. I know a lot of us are really at kind of loose ends, and that's okay. It's totally okay. It's gonna be fine. Astrology is nothing to get overly concerned with. It's just information to be empowered by. So here's some of the Astro Tidbits. Right now, I would say I would describe this, summarize it with a quote, an old proverb actually from Japan, and that is a plan without action is a daydream. Action without planning is a nightmare. We're kind of working with that energy a little bit. This is definitely, you need to leave it behind if you want to thrive. Not survive, but you need to leave it behind if you want to thrive kind of energy. And what's impacting that is that we have a lot of Mars Uranus energy, which is very abrupt, very shocking, very explosive kind of energy. And so these changes that'll be coming about and things that have kind of happened over the last couple days and will continue to happen over the next several days and into the 2 weeks, they have a potential to be kind of out of left field and surprising. It's also a really intense energy that we find ourselves with. Here we are under the sign of Pisces and Pisces season, which is the end of the zodiac. And we're under the full moon in Virgo. And Virgoan energy is very planning oriented, very structured, very let me look through all the fine details, see what I'm dealing with, and then make a plan to move on and thrive and go. We can absolutely work with these energies, as difficult and tumultuous as they might be, to bring about the best possible benefits to ourselves. So let's talk about how to do that in a really practical way. First of all, what is a waxing waning moon? Well, let's start here. The lunar cycles, every 21 days, they'll go through a different, or 28 days rather, they'll go through a cyclical motion, about 2 weeks in one sign and about 2 weeks in the other. Uh, a full moon is when we have this blast of lunar energy, and it is very intense, not just in terms of like hippie woo woo stuff, but in terms of just actual real earth things. When the moon is at its fullest, that's when tides are at their highest. We are water beings. This is a water planet. We are all feeling it. We are mostly made of water. Of course, we can sense and react to the energy of a full moon. A full moon is when the energy is at its fullest point, and for the next 2 weeks thereon, it's called a waning moon, which means that progressively every day it gets smaller. It's casting off its energy, it's letting it go. The other opposite end from the full moon is the new moon, also called dark moon. This is when we don't see a moon in the sky. This is when lunar energy is at its low point. There's really an absence of it. And from that point forward, for the next roughly 2 weeks, we're working with what's called a waxing moon, which means it's getting bigger. It's manifesting energy, it's growing. So when I work with lunar cycles, and everyone does this a little differently, I look at the full moon as a time to kind of stop, do some self care, reassess, and take a bigger look at what might be standing in my way on my way to what I'd like to manifest, bring about my goals. And, why is this a calling, a letting go rather than a pulling in? I prefer to use the new moon or dark moon as the planting seeds kind of moon. That's when the tides are at their lowest. The water is farthest out. There's sort of an emptiness. And this is a perfect emptiness or lull to kind of plant those seeds with less volatility, generally speaking. but it basically provides a nice space of potentiality to go ahead and plant those seeds, set intentions, things like that. And then they actually get impacted by that waxing moon getting bigger every day by helping it to, in the lunar energy parlance, to kind of blossom, bloom, and grow. And so I like to plant seeds, ideas, intentions, things like that at the new moon, and then reevaluate at the full moon and say, okay, now that I've brought this into reality, now that I've been building, let me take a step back. Let me do some self care, let me ground, and let me see what things might be in my way as I continue down my path. What do I need to let go of to make room and space for this growing thing to thrive? And so that's how I work with the full moon, new moon cycles. Today, I actually have some great ways for you to start to evaluate and look at things that you may want to shift. And the reason I came to these particular ideas is just based on the energy of the astrology of right now and what's being illuminated elsewhere besides just the lunar energy and even beyond just the Virgo of the new moon and the Pisces season in which we find ourselves. We do have that, a lot of that Mars Uranus type energy, that very abrupt, very fiery energy. We do have a lot of other energies moving around, and through much meditation and reflection, I feel like these are the best way for you to start to parse through and move through some themes, asking ourselves the relevant questions so that we can make the most of this potentially bumpy time. So in the last year, a lot of you who I've read tarot for and a lot of my students, you may have noticed that I basically shift the tarot deck that I favor the most every astrological new year, which is roughly thought to begin in Aries season, which is coming up next. Right now we're going towards the end of Pisces season. It's almost like astrological New Year's Eve in a sense. It's like the winding down. And I feel like it's a good time for me, just in the way my chart is lined up and just the way that I work with the energy of astrology and tarot, to kind of reassess. And that's when I get my biggest burst of what the energy of that new lunar year is going to look like for me. So what I like to do is kind of take a toll and feel the energy of the year past and then start to sense what's coming next. The energy of 2020, oh yeah, I will never forget that. The energy of 2020 was very burn it down, destroy it, it's not working, everything falling apart, uh, very much destructive, very much it's going to hold us back. This isn't going to work. We have to find a new way. We have to find a new way. We have to find a new way just to get ourselves through it. Very destructive kind of energy, very Shiva, very even tower kind of energy if you're into the tarot. As we kind of look at the energy of 2021, the energy of 2021 was that in between. We had come out of 2020 and we were starting to find some kind of ground, but at the same time, things were still challenging. We weren't able to go back to a status quo. Why would we even want to go backwards anyway? That's my 2 cents on the matter, doesn't matter. But really, we were dreaming up new potentials. Nothing was firm enough to really be built on just yet. We didn't know the way that the tides of the world were going to shift. We just knew that they were still in the progress of shifting. So it gave us an opportunity to break our connection from the status quo, the shock of 2020, the burning down of all the things, and have a moment to just sit and say, well, I can't start building anything yet, but what would I want to build? What do I want to start working towards? What do I want to start putting into motion before I put that foundation down? And now that we're heading into a new level of 2022, I've gotten some guidance intuitively about what that energy is going to be like. And right now that energy is, okay, what do you want to start building? Like, let's start to get ready. That is very much a waking up from the dream. So last year, with the lunar energy being that kind of let's think of new ways, It was very dreamy, and I actually worked with the tarot deck, the Tarot of Dreams by Ciro Marchetti. The images are very close to Rider-Waite, which is like the standard typical tarot iconography, the pictures and themes that we're most used to working with just some tweaks. Those tweaks that supported that open-ended potential and what could it be, and well, let's break down the structure behind it and let's dream of what's possible. And there was a lot of open-endedness in that deck. And now as I start to shift forward and feel the new energy, it's like, okay, this particular full moon is all about the proverbial wake up, get out of the dream. It's time to start really making some plans, which brings us back to that quote, that proverb that I started us with. It's when we have a plan or ideas or thoughts or visions, but we don't act on them, they're just a daydream. What kind of plans do we want to have to take these amazing ideas that felt right in our heart, that like, I would love to do this, or I really want to do that, or this is what I found to be really important now that my status quo has been shaken for an extensive period of time. And it's time to put those plans behind them, lest they just become a daydream. So, how do we bring that about? This full moon energy, with all the planetary movements around it, is going to help us do that waking up, although it might not be the most comfortable wake up. Yeah, but that's okay. We can work together, we can make it through this, we can make the most of it, and I've got some actual action steps and some crystal healing to help you over these next 2 weeks. So as this full moon wanes and gets smaller, as those things get shaken up, it's a great time to reflect. Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? And what is in our way between where we are now and where we want to be? What things do we have to let go of to leave behind the person we currently are and embrace the person we want to be? These are big questions. They're heavy questions, but at the same time, they're really beautiful questions to ask yourself. They're things that can empower us. They're things that can motivate us forward and help us leave behind the stuff that's in the way. If we don't kind of tend our own weeds, eventually we end up at the Tower card of the tarot, which is the card that literally has a tower with people in it that's struck by lightning and exploding and raining down those people and the pieces. That's not a card you want. That's not the energy you want of like waiting until the universe kind of clears the deck for you. You want to go ahead and be able to say, you know what, let me regularly tend my garden and then I won't have it overgrown. Sort of like cleaning the house a little every day. You don't end up one day with like, oh my goodness, it's just too much to deal with. If we do a little bit every day. Same kind of idea here, but here we're talking about soul's purpose, big stuff, the things we really want to do in our lives, the things that we've acknowledged over the last couple of years that this is sort of not great, it's not comfortable, or maybe it's just comfortable enough to get things done. This is the opportunity to really like put a stake in the ground and say, this is what I want to do, this is my intention, and this is how I'm going to go about getting it. So this is a time of letting go of old patterns, habits, and behaviors that aren't serving us any longer, whatever that might be. And we might need to have those things illuminated for us. That's never comfortable. It's okay. It's okay that it's uncomfortable because we can start to work on it and then move through it. Outdated obligations may come up, things that take up our time, that don't reward us in some way, that don't fit into our maybe our financial or monetary budget in some way, that take up mental space that we just don't have to spare. This is a time to say, what do I do with my time? What do I do with my mental, emotional, spiritual energy? What bears fruit and what doesn't? It's a time for beliefs about ourselves to come up, especially if they are no longer or maybe never were true. This might be a time where we have these things come up and we go, wait, the way I talk to myself, my internal monologue, the way I think of myself, I can't do that and I can't do that. Are those things really true? So those things may come up, or you may choose to embrace them, to learn from them. And another is the version of ourselves that we need to let go of in order to be that person who we want to be, which is always challenging. So this energy is going to pull us in two ways. And these kind of tarot card analogies, if you don't do tarot, that's okay. I'll totally explain them to you, but I'm going to show you some pictures because let's face it, y'all like pretty pictures, right? These are from the Tarot of Dreams by Cyril Marchetti. So this is a time of deep introspection, discernment, and at times even painful honesty. Uh, we need to see like our greater faults in order to make any change. Seeing our faults is so not comfortable for anybody. I know. But if we work through them, if we're honest with ourselves, we can make those changes and we can live our lives kind of free of them. The other energy that's going to be pulling us, like the other way that we'll tend to want to go, is this uh, distraction, this very Piscean kind of la 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 la, I can't hear you. What? Yeah, it's okay to do that for small bits of time, especially if you need a break. That's totally fine. Pace yourself when you're doing shadow work. Absolutely. But if it's distractions, fanciful thinking, even self-delusion, that's not going to be helpful. It's going to set us up for some difficulty down the road. So here's these pictures I was telling you about. This is the time for Seven of Cups actions. The minor arcana, or the Seven of, Five of, Eight of type cards in the tarot, are about our everyday, what we do day to day, how we show up and how we behave. And we have a lot more control over those cards that show up in a reading than the major arcana, which are major themes, life lessons kinds of thing. Those are a little bit more spiritually minded, and they're things that we're going to have to deal with either way. So the idea of being really discerning, seeing through the emotional kerfuffle and the chaos that we'll be surrounded by, to really take a good, honest look at ourselves and say, okay, this is what's working and this is what's not, is very Seven of Pentacles kind of energy, or Seven of Coins. Pentacles and coins mean the same thing. Now, you'll see here that, you've got this person sitting beneath what's usually pictured as a fruit tree, although it's growing literal coin. And this person's sitting there and they don't look entirely enthusiastic. This is usually a card of taking inventory, taking stock. Imagine being a farmer. You earn your living by growing fruit on a tree. This is the point in the season where you take a look at what your crops have yielded and say, was it worth it? What can I do differently to improve it next time? What needs to shift? This is a time of really looking at the meat and potatoes, the very literal, real world balance of things, not so much philosophical or emotions based. Pentacles, coins is all about, that whole suit is all about things that are tangible, things that we need for resources to live and survive and thrive. It's about things like real estate. It's about things like, what do you do for a living? It's about that kind of stuff. It's about real world grounded things, actual physical fruit growing from a tree. If we tend towards that, oh, this is kind of difficult, la 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 la, I can't hear you, for more than just a little bit here and there as pacing ourselves, we end up in a very different seven. The Seven of Cups. This is often seen as the illusion delusion type card. And it's not, every card has its good and its bad, just depending on how it falls and depending on how that theme shows up in our lives. This particular cups as a suit, just like we talked about the pentacles. This particular suit speaks to our emotions. It speaks to our feelings. It speaks to our experience. Seven of Cups invites the experience of maybe wanting to see, like, hey, there's all these possibilities, like we did all last year. This is a possibility, that's a possibility, but maybe it's not the right time to plant those seeds because everything's still shifting so much. This is what happens if you take the daydream and continue on the daydream. You might not realize, if say you're this guy here, he is not going to stand in front of these cups and say, oh, okay, I can take legitimate stock of those. He's going to look in front of these cups and he's going to go, what do you mean a cup full of beetles? What do you mean a cup full of angel wings, a cup full of snakes, and a cup full of keys? Some of these cups represent real literal things like keys, like a bush that bears fruit, like we see in the Seven of Pentacles. It also bears some things that maybe are just in our fantasy world. Some things like a cup full of scarabs, a cup full of wings, a cup full of, yeah, you see what I mean? This is usually someone standing in front of all of these cups like this. Look at all these possibilities. That's great for dreaming big. But right now we need to stop the dreaming big and start the making the discernment happen so that we can start to make some decisions about which of these cups are real and which are more based in fantasy. That's really important. Discernment is something where we have to really look with our logic and say, does this work? Does this make me happy? Is it going to bear fruit? Is this a way I want to go? How do I make this really manifest in a physical, real world form that feels good and is a structure that I can thrive in? Because we need those resources to build a foundation in which we can thrive. And this brings us to the major arcana that represents this. This is strength. The first layer of this journey is strength. It's having the strength to say, yeah, this lion, this is really scary, but you know what? It seems like a scary lion outside of ourselves. The old parable of the lion with the thorn in its paw. See the lion with the thorn in its paw? It's in pain, and we go, I kind of want to run away. That looks really dangerous. But if we go up and we remove the thorn from the lion's paw, we're able to then find a new friend for life. We went to the scary, delicate place, and now we have an ally. Well, what this card really represents is that lion with the thorn in its paw is really our deepest self. This is going within to the places that scare us, the places that we find challenging to really be honest about, and daring to pull out that thorn so that we can move forward with strength, not strength over, but strength in balance. We can be strong because we've gone to our scary places and we've done our work. This is what's called shadow work, and that's what this full moon is all about. So, moving on from there, what is sort of what are the kinds of things that we can fall into when we feel invited to fall into la la, I can't hear you, I'm just going to think happy thoughts? This invites something called spiritual bypassing or good vibes only. Good vibes only is, a thing you can say, you can do in a moment for a short period of time. It's not something that's sustainable long term. Spiritual bypassing is, I'm just going to think happy thoughts, I'm just going to think happy thoughts, and it's going to be at the expense of reality. Thinking positive, yes. Thinking positive to the point of delusion, maybe not. Maybe we don't want to be pessimistic about what the possibilities for growth are. We have to be honest about them, but we can't invite so much positivity that we don't actually have the ability to see what's in the cups. We need to be able to count the fruit on the tree. So that's what we're working with in this. I hope that that analogy helps you to understand some of the forces at play here. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to walk you through some prompts. There is attached in the description a 2-page PDF that can help you over the next 2 weeks. If you find writing and journaling prompts to be helpful, it might be for you. Go ahead and check it out. It's free for you. Basically, the journaling prompts are the 4 questions that we can most benefit from over the next 2-week period. One is, where am I right now? Counting the fruit on the trees. Where am I right now? 2, where do I want to be? Really being honest about what our goals are. What do we want to feel like? What do we want? Where do we want to be? Who do we want to have there with us? All of those questions. Where do you want to be? The 4th one is, what do I need to let go of to make that transition either possible or easier? This can be letting go of anything from, something as big as a job or the location where you live to something as small as, clearing through your things, clearing through your obligations, making more time in your schedule to move forward. uh, could show up in any number of ways for you. Fourth is, what are some action steps that I can take to remove these obstacles that I've now identified? So, where am I? Taking inventory. Where do I want to be? Setting goals. What do I need to let go of in order to make that transition possible? So, like, what are our obstacles? And then four, what are the steps that we can take to remove the obstacles? As we move through here, there's also some things that I've given you as potential action steps. Now, working with energy, we can work with crystals, we can manifest, we can meditate, we can do Reiki, we can do all the darn things. Do all the things in all the ways that feel right to you. But sometimes we get stuck. And this kind of energy of doing some really hard introspection, of counting all of our proverbial fruit, and trying not to get distracted by all of these beautiful ideas of what's in all these cups and potentials that are ungrounded and perhaps unsustainable, but trying to balance the two, sometimes we can get really stuck. That's okay. There's some things that we can do to help move that energy. And if that's doing Reiki, doing yoga, awesome. Do those things too. But there's some simple ways, if you've got no background in that kind of stuff whatsoever, some simple things that can be really helpful, because when we do regular mundane things with clear intention, we can move energy really, really practically. So here we go. If you find yourself stuck, here's some action cues you'll find in the document below. One is doing some light cleaning with intention. Even sweeping, dusting, mopping, things like that. That moves energy in your space. So as you do that work, set the intention that you're not just removing the dirt and debris and dust, but that you're also removing any obstacles from your way. You're sweeping a clear path for yourself to start to move through. Another is letting go of things you no longer need. This is where you can pick an area of your space, or even a whole room if you feel like it, and start deciding what to keep, what to toss, what to give away. Whether you do this for like a single drawer, something really small, just for a moment to kind of break you out of daydream land, or getting too lost in the muck and mire and minutia of sort of counting the proverbial fruit. Uh, or you take on like a full half day or day project, like doing an entire room, or creating a space that motivates you to go on in more impactful ways. This is how it's going to help you. You can take that time, start to clear through. You get that sense of accomplishment. It's a small, like, start, middle, end. You see the results really quickly. It's not something so far flung as, let me make plans for something far away. It's something that we can say, I want to clear my path ahead. Let me clear this path right here, and feel motivated by that. And that'll kind of spur us to keep moving in that direction, and it'll move that energy in that direction as well. If you want to, you can also use this time to rearrange, say, your living space or workspace. You can set it up so it functions better, whether it's your workstation or your kitchen or whatever works for you. Uh, if something's breaking your productivity routinely, for example, like I need to go grab that thing over there, and you do that 3 times a day, maybe it's time to reassess how things are set up so that you can make the most of things. Uh, Additionally, there's some crystals, and I have got coming up right here in this video an opportunity for you to heal with some Reiki and these crystals. I'll basically send you a healing. In the document below, I have all the details about these crystals and how they help, but I'm going to walk you through them. So I'm going to go ahead and just slide over to the crystal grid healing that I have here for you today. So bear with me. Okay, so here we are. Here's our crystal grid. In this crystal grid, I've laid out 7 stones, well, really 8, that can be super helpful for you in a grid formation. Right here, we have in the center, we have some clear quartz, actually more like a red quartz or iron quartz. There's actually iron in the soil where this clear quartz came from, and that's why we might see some reddish tones. I feel like that gives some grounding and fiery energy to the otherwise clear quartz, and it's a cluster, so it helps spread that energy out and kind of direct it through all the different things we're working through. The other stones I have here for you are, in no particular order, Indigo Gabbro, which also goes by Mystic Merlinite. And this one helps us to recognize our most detrimental tendencies, all of our sort of the ways that we undermine ourselves. It gives us an opportunity to heal, create change, and show ourselves unconditional love in the face of those things. Next, we have all of these lovely pieces of blue kyanite, which aids us in accepting ourselves exactly as we are. It boosts our intuition, and it helps us understand the spiritual guidance that's coming through. This can really help us to accept ourselves exactly as we are while we're making the most of all of these impressions we're getting. Petrified wood, as seen here. Petrified wood assists us in letting go of who we are or were so that we can transform and transition into this new form. This is literally a tree. It was made of wood that has since turned to stone. It has given up its former form to embrace its current form, and it can help support us as we make those transitions in our own lives. Next is Polychrome Jasper. This reignites our passion for our soul's purpose and motivates us to take action and start to make those steps in the right direction. It's great for the sort of moving towards the later phases of COVID, moving in a direction and making changes, making causes, feeling encouraged. Next is tiger eyes. Here's this beautiful raw piece of tiger eye, and this aids us with decision making and discernment. It grounds our logical mind so that we can evaluate all the facts at hand. It gives us clarity in our logic so that we can look at all the different disparate pieces and really start to make sense of them in a very grounded, very root chakra engaged kind of way. Next we have nuummite, and you may not have heard of this stone before. It is quite old. It is billions of years old. And this particular stone assists us in learning spiritual lessons from our past experiences, especially when past pain and fears of repeating those experiences hold us back. This also blesses us with these flashes of divine inspiration that you can see in those sort of white freckles that keep popping out and shining out at you. That's labradorescence. It's not actually labradorite. Labradorescence refers to these patches within the stone that reflect that white light that is thought to be related to divine inspiration and sudden burst of wisdom as we go through this work. It can be really beneficial. And last but not least, we have Mahogany Obsidian. This helps us to recognize and heal fears around perfectionism, feeling like we have to be so good or so perfect to the point that we just don't move. This kind of energy can really keep us stuck and resistant to taking the next steps just because we're fearing failure. An excellent stone for that. So what I invite you to do now is to go ahead and I'm going to lead you on a brief healing session. I'll bring up some music and we're going to end our session today with this healing session that you can save this video, leave it in your library, whatever works for you, so that you can come back to it over the next 2 weeks when you're struggling with these themes and sit in this energy again. I'll send some Reiki along with the active grid that I've activated for all of us, and you can just sit and breathe. What I suggest that you do is, as you either sit or lie down during this healing, that you take the things that you are working through, those challenges, the things that make you feel resistance, the things that make you feel defensive, the things that we learn about ourselves and we're judging ourselves and being harsh. Just kind of bring them to the healing session, bring them to mind, breathe them in, and breathe them out in whatever pace that you want. While I'm sending this healing, if you feel resistance in your physical body or stress or strain from it in your physical body, bring your hands to that area or to more than one area. If you're at a loss as to where to put your hands, you can put them in your lap, or you can place them on your heart and on your solar plexus. These two areas, unconditional love and compassion for ourselves and others, and our center of free will, this can really support us to find balance with the changes that are coming up for the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to turn up some music. If you'd like, you can go ahead and get comfortable and get ready to simply receive this healing. If you would prefer, you can also hit pause for a moment and use this time to reflect on those questions that I have in the description and in the document in the description, so that you can journal and write those down and set those goals before you do the healing. Before, during, lots of times after, no matter how you use this energy healing, it's meant for you as a gift so that you can go ahead and make the most of this time, walking fearless into your future and living your soul's purpose. So I'm going to go ahead and get ready to send. I'm going to turn up some music. Go ahead and simply relax. You don't need to do anything other than what I described. If you simply like to receive the healing, you absolutely just may. Sit back, close your eyes, and allow the energy to support you. If you would like, or if you feel any of those things stuck or holding you back, just deep breath in, deep breath out. Thank you so much for being with me today. It's an honor and a pleasure to share this healing with all of you. This will go on for about 10 minutes, and then we'll call our session to a close. Okay? I invite you now to take a deep breath. Gently stretch, move, or bend. You can continue on with your journaling prompts, your goal setting, or just the rest of your day. Feel free to check back in on this video at any time in the next 2 weeks, and I wish you a beautiful full moon in Virgo. My name is DanielleStimpson. I'm here 5 times a week, live, sending community distance Reiki with a crystal grid built with support of the folks who show up for healing, made to support the requests for healing that they set. And I'd love it if you joined us. You can learn more about it on my channel right here at Learn Reiki Philadelphia, and you can learn more about me, including live Reiki classes, a crystal shop, and sessions and tarot readings with me at learnreikiphiladelphia.com. All of our socials and everything else are down in the descriptions. Thank you for spending this time with me. I wish you all the healing and abundance and beauty in the future. Have a wonderful day.